On this episode of Two Fat Drunks, we're going to talk about the new Prime TV series, Rings of Power, and talk about if it's any good, should you watch it, is it as bad as some people said, is it as good as some people say. All that more coming up next.
Next. There's a next.
All right, hey, everybody. They're on the interweb.
On the internet.
Thanks to all of our 73 viewers
Mark, right?
and
Token Dave.
at least 70 other people. Thanks for watching.
Token Dave's mom.
Welcome, Mom, back into another episode of...
I will bet you Token Dave's mom watched the show at least once.
Okay, I'll bet you $1,000. That's not true.
Token, let us know.
Anywho, I'm JDV.
I'm Warp Pig.
And all right, so let's just jump right on into it. Now, as we film this, episode 3 is dropping. So, I mean, if you watch this in the future, then who knows? They might all be out. It might be disaster.
Amazing.
People have gone bankrupt and fired and everything. But as we record this, 2 episodes are out. Well, I guess third
It's
one's
still a
tonight.
going concern.
So we both watched it. And all right, so
Yep.
before we kind of review it, let's talk about the shoes that this film or this series is trying to fill.
Let's talk.
Let's talk about a film called Return of the King that won, I believe, 12 Oscar-tied Titanic for the
Oscars.
most Oscars ever.
Such ask us.
Each film made more than $1 billion, featuring such unknown terrible actors as Ian McKellen.
I've never heard of him. What about Ian Holm? Or Christopher Lee? Or Elijah Wood? Or Sean Astin?
Viggo Mortensen.
Or Sean Bean?
Yeah, Sean Bean.
Yeah.
Or how about Kate Blanchett?
Or John Rice Davies?
Or how about this? Ian McKellen.
Sir Ian
Did we
McKellen.
mention
Sorry,
Ian McKellen?
sorry, Ian
I'm pretty
McKellen.
sure we said Ian McKellen.
Okay, directed by an actual Hobbit.
Yes,
Peter
literally
Jackson.
not just a Hobbit, but from New Zealand, where hobbits are born.
From Hobbiton. Well,
Until it
naturally.
became overrun by orcs and a tyrannical overlord seized them all enslaved.
God bless.
Wow, they really did hire Sauron. But anyway,
So, also, that series of films was based on a series of books that sold, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of copies of Lord of the Rings.
second only to the Bible,
Bible.
the word of
It
Christ.
probably is a beloved series of books for the last, I don't know, 70
Forever,
years.
since
or-
you've been alive.
Right? And so when you combine all of that, all of the success, all of the greatness that is that first Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then if you throw in the Hobbit prequels, all of it's also made like $800, $900 million a
Big
piece.
as they can be.
You put all of that in one corner, and Rings of Power from Amazon is trying to be the next step in
In
that
evolution.
Evil.
so it's an unfair fight right from the start, right? Also, Rings of Power is what? It's a prequel. And even George Lucas, the master genius, came up with Star Wars, stumbled a bit, I think fair to say, in
Right.
his prequels and
they
both
were-
tone, timing, and
But he's
where he
told
chose
the
to
story
put
in
his
a interesting
storytelling.
story.
There's some ups and
There's a
downs,
story.
fair to
Yeah.
say. But that was still the Tolkien of that genre, writing the book. I mean, it was Lucas doing them, though. So it still feels, well, okay, the guy who came up with all of this, this is where he wants to take it.
Sure.
None of that is true for this Rings of Power show,
No.
which, as far as I can tell, has nothing to do with
Anything that's been popular with the Lord of the Rings for the last 22 years.
It's not the Similarion.
Similarian?
Similarian.
It's Simeon. History of Simeons.
So
By
it's
J.R.
not that. It is,
Or George
if
R. R.
you
Martin.
look at the very last frame of that series, hit freeze or whatever, it says, I think, inspired by the characters the story of, but not
in
necessarily
a way,
related to.
sort of, maybe.
It is almost like a fan film in that regard, in that how can it ever really be official other than Tolkien's estate received money? Other than that licensing, which, okay, I get that, it really is not. It's like a Frank Herbert
Right, it's almost like
universe without using any of Brian Herbert's stuff. Or
Right,
it's
just
not even
we're
based on Tolkien's
play.
sons. Or
We're-
it's not based.
We're gonna do
As
this.
far as I know, correct me in the comments
guys
if I'm
do that
wrong.
there.
It's sort of made up whole cloth with one or two of the characters from the, or three or four of the characters.
At least two.
Right,
but-
at least two, maybe three or four when it's all said and done.
So,
But other than that, that is the only link, so to speak, to Peter Jackson's, to the books. So, does that
dude, there are
mean?
literal
Does that
werewolves outside.
Does that mean it had no chance at all, or does it actually succeed despite all that?
It would have succeeded if they had tried something that was similar to the source material. Like,
Well, they did.
but not like that. I mean, there's no story to tell really, and that's the big disadvantage of prequels because
Massive disadvantage.
I know Galadriel's not going to die, so there goes that tension, and Elrond, I feel like he makes it, so
Right, the two characters that you are most likely to be most invested in, characters from the
You
books
already
and the
know.
movies, you already know survive.
right. So therefore, and then okay.
But
So-
isn't that true of something like a movie like Titanic, which,
Titanic too?
well, no,
Electric Titanic.
well, no, just the first Titanic, but Jim Cameron, everybody knew the ship fucking sank, man.
This time it's
It
personal.
still made $3 trillion or whatever.
That's true, but you didn't.
It doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Interesting story.
You're saying,
But you didn't
again,
know-
you're saying the same thing I am, where it's kneecapped by a lot of different things.
Right.
I'm saying,
You
despite
look, it
that,
did start in the hole.
yeah,
Okay.
it's hard, right?
It's a fan fiction written
But did you like it?
By
people
someone
that don't like
by
it.
people who don't like it who aren't fans.
You can't make fan fiction if you're not a fan.
You know what though?
Yeah,
okay.
I didn't get that.
It's getting a pile of hate, which I
Why
get
is it getting hate? I don't know.
I get
I
it's
don't-
getting a lot of hate
you
because there's a couple of different reasons. The casting choices and
I actually think cast pretty good, but
just there's sort of just the general approach really. There's a lot of hate for it. Honestly, my biggest problem with it, to be legit,
no gay sex scenes.
Well, wait for that because I'm pretty sure they said Elrond is going to be gay.
Sure. Who cares? There's an elf. It's like hobbits. Okay.
anyway, no, the biggest problem with that is that you took one of the most interesting and amazing genres and sweeping music and epic scenes and the biggest story ever and made it boring. How did you
One
do that?
episode or two.
How
I mean, we're
did
still
you
setting
do
it up.
No. Okay, there's things you can set up and also have things happen. Dude, otherwise what you get is a movie that's essentially, or show rather, movie, fuck it. It is essentially an interview. Like, characters can give exposition while they're doing stuff. In this case, the people giving exposition aren't doing shit. They're just walking around talking to each other for a long time. And you're just like,
So it's funny
I
you say
literally
that.
fell asleep. I'm
Because-
sorry. I
Well,
was like,
because in the first episode, I'll tell you where it does stumble a bit. I'm about to defend it a little bit, but in the beginning,
the indefensible.
the same thing happens in Fellowship of the Ring. You have a scene where a narrator talks about some of the past leading up to what you're about to see. But Peter Jackson showed more. It was more epic and was a whole lot shorter. I think that opening narration goes on for like 3 or 4 minutes, maybe almost 5 minutes. I mean, it does go on a long time. That first episode, it is not the best first episode you'll ever see of a show, but I would say in terms of hate, or are you saying they're not a fan? No, I think the people who wrote it and or made it did do it with love. I do think that how can you make a movie in New Zealand based on Tolkien, even though I know halfway through the production they moved it to Ireland or Scotland or whatever because COVID type stuff. I think the love is there.
New Zealand.
I
Do
think,
not look to hope.
I think the acting is there. I think the actors are actually pretty good in it so far. I think the effects have been amazing. I think they're great. Like people crapping on the effects. Well, right. I mean, they ought to have great costumes. They ought to have great effects.
$1 billion.
In terms of the music, Howard Shore did the opening theme. It's not spectacular, but
it's Howard
They got
Shore.
Howard Shore, and then they got Bear McCreary, who did Battlestar Galactica and a whole bunch of
Howard
other things.
Shore humming the tune.
Yeah, but they're spending the money where you want them to spend the money. They're making an effort. The thing that is hard to wrap your head around is because it's not directly from Tolkien, why are they making it? And it could only be two reasons: because you're a pure fan or because it's a money grab.
Who are they making it for?
Well, they're making for the people who have all bought the Lord of the Rings movies, like you and me and you. And
Because
you.
it seems like now,
But that's money, right?
and I might be being unfair.
So being cynical about it hurts something that is supposed to be so fantastical.
what makes me wonder though, like,
And yes, a little laborious in the first episode. The first
have
episode
you?
drags.
Why would you try or even attempt to alienate the fan base? Because that seems like what's happened. Fair or not, right? It just seems like they've alienated the fan base of the original. You couldn't get Jackson's blessing. You couldn't bring in one
Del Toro.
actor from the original. You couldn't have any connection.
Not a single famous actor that I have seen in the
I
cast
mean,
yet.
if they are famous, they're not famous with me.
And boy,
therefore
does
they're
it
not
make a
famous.
difference if Kate Blanchett opens up that show,
Huge.
speaking it.
100% makes it.
It's, and let me
Yeah.
tell you, one of the brilliant things that J.J. Abrams did in that Star Trek reboot was convince Leonard Nimoy to be a part of it. Because
Yeah.
as soon as he said yes, guess what it did? Made
Legit.
everything 100% unquestioned
Canon, dude.
legit canon.
It was
That's
legit
right.
right there.
Agent
It's like, yep.
Smith. See Agent Smith.
And guess
L.
what?
Ron
This
there.
Lord of the Rings thing, it is fair because it's true. I don't know if it's legit yet. If it plays out and by the end of the season, 6 episodes from now, I'm like, my God, this is the greatest TV show of all
Right,
time.
could be, maybe.
Then great. But if it ain't, if it's just
Meh.
it can't be meh.
it can't
It
be
can't be
meh,
meh.
dude.
And I see, I'm okay with meh because I'm watch anything as long
But
as
you
it's
can't
good.
grab that and say, meh.
But you can't spend $300 and $400 million and get meh. I'll say this.
Say
When you look at shows that really push the ball forward in terms of narrative, and that could be anything from Letterkenny.
Yeah.
Letterkenny
Letterkenny.
pushes story forward, like old Battlestar Galactica would
Yeah,
really push the story. Even The Office. Part of why The Office is so great is every episode something
And all of those
is happening
shows-
and are
Right.
very short. They're 22 minutes long. A modern show. I love The Orville, the new season of The Orville. That show went huge story arcs in a very small amount of time, and they took
Hey, robot commit suicide, dude.
they took a whole lot of time in that first episode of Lord of the Rings. Considering there's only 8 in the first season,
That's a lot of time because they're trying
they
to.
had, 70
It's a TV
minutes.
show. You got to pace that differently, man.
they have to pace it differently.
You got to pace it differently.
And
You
see,
can't
that's
make
the
it
thing
like
that
it's
they
the beginning of
can't-
the movie.
I would say that is maybe the best criticism of the show, other than it doesn't deserve to be made at all.
That was my biggest problem with it. Was
Is the pace? They haven't quite said no. This is you can't be Peter Jackson.
No.
you have to be Battlestar Galactica.
Be something-
You have. I
you
mean, you
gotta
have
push
to
it,
be.
man. Come
be
on, let's
like,
go.
yeah,
Know your place.
drive
Know
that
your
story.
place,
peasant.
Drive the story. This is television. It's a different thing. Like so, why I had a lot of fun in doing our zombie show, Reanimated, because it's a totally different set of expectations
Sure.
for TV. I mean, even just the way you list the credits is, special guest star. You don't see that shit in movies. I mean, just
Gonna roll you
everything
up
from that is like, no, TV has a different aesthetic, and they tried to keep the Lord of the Rings movies aesthetic.
And that's not going to work.
All right, so anyway, if you like this kind of thing, I don't know, you chime in down
the
below.
shit. Pick the
Are
bait.
you a fan of the Lord of the Rings film? Do you think it has potential, or
Well,
is
do
it
you
just a
hate
money
it?
grab, like Jeremy says, or it's just not quite good enough to deserve the money? I like it.
crap.
I have hopes for it, but that first
Right.
episode ain't great. Second episode's better. Let us know down below what you think. Love each other, and until next time, mwah! Smacky.
Smacky, smack, smack.
Smacky s'mores. Did I say death camp? I meant happy camp.
Come to happy camp. All your dreams will come true.
We swear.
But look at the camera.
Look at the camera. More like, huh? Goofier face. Yeah, that's good. All right, stay there. Oh, sweet, I can get closer. Okay, stay right there. That's like really, like go. Woo. Solid gold. God.
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.